Beloved, tonight we are going to confront a truth that many fear to acknowledge. Being chosen is not always easy. Being chosen comes with trials, with loneliness, with heartbreaks that seem unbearable. You see, God doesn't just select anyone to walk a sacred path. When He calls you to a higher purpose, but that path often separates you from the crowd, from comfort, from familiarity. And tonight, we're going to uncover why chosen ones are often lonely, why they often feel broken, and how that very brokenness can be transformed into a vessel of purpose and power. Chosen ones experience isolation because God prepares them in the wilderness. Let me tell you, when God selects someone for a higher calling, He does not place them in the crowded halls of ease and comfort. He takes them into the wilderness, a place where there is silence, a place where the voices of the world cannot drown out the whisper of heaven. The wilderness is not merely a geographic location, it is a spiritual state, a place of separation, a testing ground where the soul is refined. In the wilderness, the chosen one is stripped of all that is familiar, all that gives them false security, and all that keeps them dependent on the approval of others. It is in the wilderness that God removes the noise, the distractions, and even the companions who cannot withstand the pressure of divine preparation. And let me tell you, it is not a pleasant experience to be alone in the desert, to walk through the valley where no one understands your vision, where your dreams feel heavy and your prayers seem to echo back at you in silence. But it is necessary because God cannot trust the fullness of His plan to someone who has not been purged of dependency, someone who cannot stand without the applause of men, someone who has not learned to rely solely on His Spirit. The isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. Every chosen one must come to the place where they face themselves, where they confront their fears, insecurities, and doubts. In the wilderness, you discover who you are when no one is watching, when the crowds have gone home, and when the lights have dimmed. It is here that God teaches endurance. It is here that He trains patience. It is here that the soul begins to understand that being chosen is not about comfort, it is about calling. And the truth is, God does not call the equipped, He equips the called. But to equip the called, He must first bring them into the space where nothing external can prop them up, where they must rely on divine provision and guidance. It is in the solitude of this spiritual training ground that character is forged and faith is tested. Consider the prophets, the apostles, the leaders of old. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he led a nation. David was a shepherd, alone in the fields, before he became a king. Joseph was cast into a pit and imprisoned before he rose to power. Each one of them endured isolation, endured waiting, endured a season where the world could not understand their journey. And just like them, the chosen today must understand that loneliness is often the prerequisite for greatness. The wilderness exposes weaknesses so that God can replace them with strength. It brings trials so that faith can grow. It removes distractions so that purpose can be clarified. And it allows the chosen one to hear God's voice with greater clarity because in the silence, heaven speaks loudest. Many do not understand this. They see the loneliness, they feel the brokenness, and they think God has abandoned them, but nothing could be further from the truth. The wilderness is not a void, it is a preparation chamber. It is a sacred school where God shapes the chosen into vessels capable of carrying a divine mission, vessels that will not be shaken by criticism, opposition, or misunderstanding. Loneliness is not a curse, it is a signal. It is the mark of a soul that is rising, a spirit that is being elevated, and a destiny that is being refined. You see, the world has made us fear loneliness. We run from it. We fill our lives with noise, social media, distractions, and meaningless chatter to avoid the silence that comes with being chosen. But the truth is, loneliness is often the unmistakable evidence that God is moving you into a place higher than the crowd, beyond the ordinary, into the realm of the extraordinary. When God is about to do something new in your life, He first separates you from the masses. He allows you to feel the emptiness around you so that the fullness of His presence can fill you. Loneliness is not your enemy, it is your signal. It is God's way of saying, you are being prepared for something greater. The world cannot understand it yet, but I am grooming you for my purpose. Think about it. When a seed is planted in the soil, it is buried alone. It is separated from the sunlight, surrounded by darkness, pressed on all sides by the weight of the earth. And yet in that isolation, something miraculous happens. The seed begins to grow. Roots dig deep, strength develops, and eventually that seed emerges into the light, bearing fruit far greater than it could have ever achieved on the surface, untested, unchallenged, and unrefined. The same is true for the chosen one. Loneliness is the soil in which your character takes root. It is the space where resilience is cultivated, where vision becomes sharper, and where the voice of God is no longer drowned out by the opinions of men. Most people never understand this. They see your loneliness and assume you are weak, abandoned, or failing. They cannot see the unseen workings of God behind the curtain of isolation. They cannot understand the wrestling with fear, doubt, and uncertainty that is happening in the secret places of your heart. And that's exactly how it has to be. If everyone understood your journey, if everyone recognized the work God is doing in you, it would not require faith. But the chosen must learn to walk alone, to trust alone, and to wait alone, because true spiritual elevation comes with a measure of solitude. It is in those quiet moments of reflection, prayer, and wrestling with God that the chosen one develops a depth of intimacy with the Father that cannot be faked, bought, or borrowed. And let me tell you something else. Loneliness teaches discernment. When you are alone, you learn to distinguish between those who are genuinely aligned with your purpose and those who are merely in your presence for convenience. You learn to hear the voice of God above the crowd, to follow His instruction even when it contradicts popular opinion. Loneliness forces you to rely on divine guidance instead of human approval. It strips away the superficial relationships that keep you tethered to the ordinary and prepares you to embrace the extraordinary. The pain of loneliness can be heavy, yes, but it is purposeful. It is a spiritual signal that you are on a higher frequency than those around you, that your mission cannot be fully comprehended by the crowd, and that God is preparing you for impact far beyond your current understanding. The very loneliness that tempts you to despair is the very thing that marks you as chosen, set apart, and destined for greatness. Loneliness is not a curse, it is a signal. It is the mark of a soul that is rising, a spirit that is being elevated, and a destiny that is being refined. You see, the world has made us fear loneliness. We run from it. We fill our lives with noise, social media, distractions, and meaningless chatter to avoid the silence that comes with being chosen. But the truth is, loneliness is often the unmistakable evidence that God is moving you into a place higher than the crowd, beyond the ordinary, into the realm of the extraordinary. When God is about to do something new in your life, He first separates you from the masses. He allows you to feel the emptiness around you so that the fullness of His presence can fill you. Loneliness is not your enemy, it is your signal. It is God's way of saying, you are being prepared for something greater. The world cannot understand it yet, but I am grooming you for my purpose. Think about it. When a seed is planted in the soil, it is buried alone. It is separated from the sunlight, surrounded by darkness, pressed on all sides by the weight of the earth. And yet, in that isolation, something miraculous happens. The seed begins to grow, roots dig deep. Strength develops, and eventually that seed emerges into the light, bearing fruit far greater than it could have ever achieved on the surface, untested, unchallenged, and unrefined. The same is true for the chosen one. Loneliness is the soil in which your character takes root. It is the space where resilience is cultivated, where vision becomes sharper, and where the voice of God is no longer drowned out by the opinions of men. Most people never understand this. They see your loneliness and assume you are weak, abandoned, or failing. They cannot see the unseen workings of God behind the curtain of isolation. They cannot understand the wrestling with fear, doubt, and uncertainty that is happening in the secret places of your heart. And that's exactly how it has to be. If everyone understood your journey, if everyone recognized the work God is doing in you, it would not require faith. But the chosen must learn to walk alone, to trust alone, and to wait alone, because true spiritual elevation comes with a measure of solitude. It is in those quiet moments of reflection, prayer, and wrestling with God that the chosen one develops a depth of intimacy with the Father that cannot be faked, bought, or borrowed. And let me tell you something else. Loneliness teaches discernment. When you are alone, you learn to distinguish between those who are genuinely aligned with your purpose and those who are merely in your presence for convenience. You learn to hear the voice of God above the crowd, to follow His instruction even when it contradicts popular opinion. Loneliness forces you to rely on divine guidance instead of human approval. It strips away the superficial relationships that keep you tethered to the ordinary and prepares you to embrace the extraordinary. The pain of loneliness can be heavy, yes, but it is purposeful. It is a spiritual signal that you are on a higher frequency than those around you, that your mission cannot be fully comprehended by the crowd, and that God is preparing you for impact far beyond your current understanding. The very loneliness that tempts you to despair is the very thing that marks you as chosen, set apart, and destined for greatness. Brokenness is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your transformation. It is the place where God's power meets your weakness, where His glory is revealed through your fragility, and where destiny is forged in the fires of pain. Many of us spend our lives running from brokenness, trying to avoid it at all costs. We hide our scars, we mask our failures, and we pretend as if we are whole. But the truth is, the broken places in your life are the very places God intends to use. They are the cracks in your heart through which His light can shine brightest. The chosen ones are often broken because God refuses to trust untested vessels with extraordinary purpose. He breaks what cannot hold His power so that His strength can be revealed through what remains. Think about it. A piece of clay in the hands of a master potter must first be kneaded, pressed, and sometimes shattered before it can be molded into a vessel of beauty and usefulness. If the clay resists the pressure, it remains ordinary. But when it yields to the breaking, the shaping, and the molding, it becomes something extraordinary, something capable of holding water, of carrying life, of fulfilling purpose. In the same way, brokenness is the divine crucible where your raw potential is refined into something functional, powerful, and eternal. God allows the breaking so that you will learn dependence, humility, and patience. He allows the suffering so that you will discover depth in yourself that you could never have achieved in comfort. Most people fear brokenness because it exposes vulnerability. It strips away pride, ambition, and illusion. But this exposure is exactly what God requires. The chosen cannot walk in destiny carrying the masks of pretense or the burden of self-sufficiency. He allows us to be broken so that we can encounter Him in the deepest, most intimate ways. In the brokenness, prayers become sincere. Worship becomes heartfelt, faith becomes unwavering, and the heart, once hardened by life and circumstances, softens to receive the fullness of God's grace. Consider Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. By the world's standards, he was broken beyond repair. Yet God used that brokenness as the foundation for his rise to power, his influence over nations, and his ability to save countless lives. David, too, was hunted, rejected, and misunderstood, yet the Psalms he wrote in his moments of brokenness became a legacy of hope, faith, and courage for generations. The brokenness was not punishment, it was preparation, a necessary refining process to equip them for their divine destiny. Brokenness teaches resilience. It teaches you to rise when you fall, to speak when you have been silenced, and to hope when the world has given up. It is in those moments when you feel most shattered that God is reshaping your life, molding you into a vessel that is capable of bearing the weight of destiny, the responsibility of purpose, and the power of influence. You begin to understand that your pain is not meaningless, your trials are not in vain, and your suffering is not permanent. Every tear, every heartbreak, every disappointment is being used as a building block in the architecture of your calling. And here is the beauty: brokenness humbles, but it also strengthens. It reminds you that you cannot rely on your own understanding, your own strength, or your own timing. It forces you into God's arms, into His presence, and into His plan. The broken pieces of your life, when surrendered, do not remain shattered. They are restored, transformed, and made greater than they were before. Your brokenness is not a sign of defeat. It is the fingerprint of divine destiny shaping you for a purpose only God can accomplish. Beloved, if you are chosen, if God has set you apart for a higher purpose, understand this opposition is not a sign that you are failing. It is the proof that you are on the path God has destined for you. The chosen path is not the path of ease, comfort, or popularity. It is the path of purpose, and purpose always attracts resistance. The world cannot always comprehend divine destiny. People will misunderstand your motives, question your decisions, and even oppose your progress because the chosen path runs contrary to ordinary thinking, ordinary living, and ordinary dreams. And the truth is, opposition is not always external. Sometimes it comes from those closest to you, friends, family, colleagues, and even mentors who cannot see the vision God has planted in your heart. But remember this, when opposition comes, it often comes as confirmation that you are stepping into the very calling for which you were created. Think about it. Jesus himself, the chosen Son of God, faced constant opposition. The religious leaders misunderstood him. The crowds questioned him. Even his own disciples did not fully grasp his mission at times. And yet, opposition did not deter him, it defined him. It forced him to rely on God's wisdom rather than human approval. It sharpened his focus, strengthened his resolve, and prepared him for the ultimate fulfillment of his mission. The chosen one must understand that opposition is not a detour, it is a signpost, a signal that you are on the correct course, a test to see whether your faith is rooted in God or in people. Misunderstanding is another companion of the chosen path. When God is working in you, people will misinterpret your actions, judge your decisions, and question your intentions. They may whisper behind your back, doubt your potential, or even ridicule your faith. And it is tempting to seek validation, to demand explanation, or to defend yourself. But the chosen must learn to walk in divine clarity rather than human approval. God has called you to a purpose that transcends human comprehension. People will never fully understand the process, the timing, or the design of your life because their perspective is limited and your destiny is unlimited. Misunderstanding is not your enemy, it is the price of elevation. Opposition also teaches perseverance. It teaches you to keep moving forward when the doors of opportunity seem closed. It teaches you to speak truth even when it is unpopular. It teaches you to stand when the majority chooses to sit, to fight when others are giving up, and to shine when darkness surrounds you. The chosen path demands resilience, and opposition is the forge in which resilience is crafted. It separates the committed from the casual, the prepared from the pretenders, and the faithful from the faint-hearted. And here is the beauty: opposition and misunderstanding are temporary, but the impact of walking faithfully on your chosen path is eternal. Every challenge, every doubt, every attack is being used to strengthen your resolve, sharpen your vision, and fortify your spirit. The very resistance you encounter will shape your character, refine your faith, and prepare you to handle the influence and responsibility that come with your calling. Do not be surprised when you face opposition. Do not be discouraged when others misunderstand you. Instead, embrace it as a confirmation that God is moving you forward, elevating you beyond ordinary expectations, and positioning you for a destiny that will leave a mark on the world. Remember, the path of the chosen is rarely easy, but it is always purposeful. And those who endure the opposition with faith and perseverance will find themselves standing in places of honor, power, and divine fulfillment. Beloved, if you are walking in your divine calling, understand this truth: purpose requires pruning. God will sometimes remove from your life the people, places, and patterns that are comfortable but no longer serve the path He has for you. And I know that sounds painful because the pruning process often feels like loss, abandonment, or rejection. But let me tell you something: God is not taking away from you. He is making room for what He is about to give you. He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is not closing doors without reason. He is clearing the space so that your destiny can manifest fully. The purpose-driven life is not the life of comfort. It is not the life where everyone around you always understands you. It is not the life where relationships remain unchanged just because of history or familiarity. God's pruning is intentional. It is surgical. It removes distractions, detours, and dependencies so that the chosen one can grow into the fullness of God's plan. And make no mistake, the pruning is painful because it is personal. It affects relationships, routines, and habits that once felt safe. You may lose friends who cannot support your vision. You may leave environments that no longer align with your calling. You may even outgrow seasons of life that once felt secure. But this pruning is essential because God cannot bless a tree that has not been trimmed. He cannot elevate a life that is entangled in what is not meant to endure. Think about a vine in a vineyard. The gardener must cut away the branches that are unfruitful, the shoots that steal energy from the main plant, the growth that will not contribute to the harvest. And if the gardener did not prune the vine, it would produce fewer grapes, weaker fruit, and an incomplete harvest. In the same way, God prunes your life not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to prepare you for abundant fruitfulness. Every removed relationship, every closed door, every uncomfortable shift is creating the space for divine increase, for spiritual growth, and for God's purpose to emerge unhindered. Pruning also teaches discernment. It helps you recognize which relationships are genuine and which are conditional. It reveals who will stand with you through storms, who will speak truth when it matters, and who will honor your calling even when it challenges their comfort. The chosen one cannot afford to be surrounded by voices that pull them back into mediocrity. Purpose demands focus, and focus requires pruning. God is removing the excess noise, the distractions, and even the well-meaning but misguided advice so that His voice can resonate clearly in your life. And here is the beauty of pruning: it is not permanent loss. The spaces God clears are meant to be filled with blessings, divine relationships, and opportunities that align with your calling. You may feel lonely in the moment, yes, but God is making room for the people, partnerships, and divine encounters that will accelerate your destiny. He is clearing your life of what weighs you down so you can soar. He is pruning the old so that the new can flourish. Comfort zones, too, are pruned. God will not allow you to stay in familiar routines if those routines keep you from your purpose. He will challenge your habits, stretch your abilities, and push you into places of discomfort so that faith grows, courage strengthens, and character is developed. The chosen life is never static. It requires movement, risk, and surrender. And God knows that the only way to produce the extraordinary is to move you out of the ordinary, to take you from the safe harbor into uncharted waters, and to remove anything that would hinder your growth. So embrace the pruning process. Trust the timing. Celebrate the divine clearing even when it hurts. For every relationship that fades, every comfort that is removed, every door that closes is making room for the life God has designed for you, a life of purpose, fruitfulness, and spiritual impact that no one, not even the world, can diminish. Beloved, listen carefully. Pain and disappointment are not signs of failure. They are the master sculptors of destiny. Every tear you have cried, every setback you have faced, every moment when life seemed to betray you is being used by God to shape you into a vessel capable of carrying His purpose. The chosen ones are not spared from hardship. In fact, they are often marked by it. Pain is the hammer, disappointment is the chisel, and God's Spirit is the artisan, fashioning a life that cannot be forged in comfort or ease. You see, character is not built when everything is going well. Faith is not strengthened when life is smooth. True spiritual growth occurs in the furnace of trials, in the moments when your heart is heavy and your vision feels delayed. The Bible tells us that testing produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, a hope that is unshakable, unmovable, and eternal. Pain, my friends, is not punishment, it is preparation. Disappointment is not defeat. It is a divine instructor teaching lessons that comfort never could. Every chosen one must face seasons of disappointment because destiny cannot be handed to a fragile heart. God allows things to go wrong so that you will learn reliance on Him. He allows people to fail you so that you will learn to trust His faithfulness. He allows dreams to be delayed so that patience can take root and endurance can flourish. And in those moments, when the night is long and the road feels impossible, something supernatural begins to happen. Faith deepens. A trust develops in God's timing that is unshakable. A resilience forms that will not bow to circumstance. A courage emerges that will face opposition without fear. Look at the heroes of Scripture. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. David faced rejection, ridicule, and relentless pursuit by enemies. Paul endured beatings, shipwrecks, and imprisonment. Yet through every trial, every heartbreak, every disappointment, they emerged stronger, wiser, and more equipped to fulfill their calling. Pain was not their enemy, it was their teacher. Disappointment was not their end, it was the refining fire that produced endurance, character, and faith. And the same principle applies to you. Every setback you have experienced, every moment you wanted to give up, is being used to cultivate a deeper strength and a more resilient faith. Disappointment also teaches discernment. When life does not go as planned, you begin to see the difference between what is fleeting and what is eternal, between superficial connections and genuine support, between false dreams and true calling. Pain strips away illusion, exposing reality in a way that comfort never could. It forces you to confront your limitations and, in doing so, draws you closer to God, the source of strength that never fails. And here is the power in the process. Refined faith produces influence. A character shaped by disappointment becomes a testimony to others. A heart molded by trials becomes a beacon of hope for those who are struggling. The chosen one learns to minister from experience, to lead from endurance, and to speak with authority because they have walked through the very fire they now stand above. Pain and disappointment, when surrendered to God, are transformed into instruments of divine purpose. So embrace your trials, welcome the seasons of sorrow. Understand that every wound has a message, every setback has a lesson, and every heartbreak has a purpose. God is using pain and disappointment not to defeat you, but to refine you, to strengthen you, and to prepare you for a destiny that will surpass anything you could have imagined. Beloved, let me tell you something tonight. There is a power in solitude that the crowded world will never understand. When you are alone, stripped of distractions, isolated from the noise of opinions and expectations, that is when heaven begins to speak loudest. The chosen ones must learn that intimacy with God is not built in the rush of activity, the applause of the crowd, or the comfort of company. It is cultivated in the quiet, in the stillness, and in the sacred spaces where only you and God remain. Solitude is not emptiness, it is fullness in disguise. It is the training ground where faith deepens, vision sharpens, and the Spirit of God whispers the secrets of your destiny. Many of us fear being alone. We fill our lives with noise, activity, and relationships because solitude feels uncomfortable. But the truth is, God uses those moments of solitude to do what the world cannot. In the silence, He reveals purpose. In the quiet, He aligns destiny. In the stillness, He speaks truth that the busy mind would never hear. The chosen ones are often lonely because God is giving them access to intimacy with Him that others cannot yet comprehend. It is in these moments of aloneness that the soul learns to rely not on the strength of men, not on approval from others, but solely on the power and wisdom of God. Consider Elijah, who fled into the wilderness, weary and disheartened. He sat alone under a broom tree, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. And yet it was in that moment, in that lonely place, that God spoke, not through the storm, not through the earthquake, not through the fire, but through a gentle whisper. God's greatest revelations often come in quiet moments when the soul is most attentive, most humble, and most ready to listen. The same is true for the chosen today. Solitude is where clarity comes. It is where prayer becomes more than words. It becomes communion. It is where vision becomes more than a dream. It becomes a roadmap. Divine intimacy in solitude also builds strength. When you are alone, there is no one to rescue you, no one to fix the situation, no one to tell you what to do. You learn to trust God in ways you never could in the comfort of company. Your faith becomes personal. Your prayers become urgent. Your hope becomes unshakable. You discover that you are never truly alone because the Creator of the universe walks with you, talks with you, and equips you for the calling that only He has designed for you. Solitude also produces discernment. When you are alone, your heart and mind are laid bare. You can no longer hide behind distractions, compromises, or external validation. You confront your fears, your doubts, your weaknesses, and your desires. And in that confrontation, God reveals what must remain and what must change. You learn to separate your voice from His voice, your will from His will, your dreams from His divine plan. It is in solitude that you hear clearly, obey faithfully, and walk confidently into the destiny He has prepared for you. And here is the promise. Those who embrace solitude will experience intimacy with God that transforms everything. Relationships gain depth because they are no longer a substitute for divine connection. Decisions gain clarity because they are informed by heaven, not opinion. Purpose gains momentum because it is fueled by wisdom, not emotion. The chosen ones in their moments of solitude discover power, vision, and authority that cannot be replicated by the presence of the crowd. So do not fear being alone. Do not despise the quiet. Do not run from the wilderness of isolation, for it is there in the sacred solitude that God draws near, speaks profoundly, and prepares the chosen for impact beyond imagination. In those moments, intimacy with the Almighty becomes the foundation of everything you are called to do, and the strength you receive there will carry you through every challenge, opposition, and season of loneliness that lies ahead. Beloved, listen carefully, because this is the climax of your calling. The journey through loneliness and brokenness is not wasted. It is the pathway to authority, the doorway to influence, and the preparation for your divine assignment. Every tear you have cried, every sleepless night, every season of rejection, disappointment, or isolation has been leading you to a place of power. The chosen ones do not gain authority through ease or comfort. They gain it through endurance, through perseverance, and through a faith that refuses to quit even when the world misunderstands them. Authority in God's kingdom is born in the crucible of struggle. Influence is forged in the fires of brokenness, and those who endure the lonely seasons with unwavering faith emerge as vessels capable of shaping destinies, touching lives and moving nations. Consider the life of Moses. He wandered the desert for 40 years, rejected by his own people, misunderstood by the world, and seemingly forgotten by those around him. And yet it was precisely in those lonely, isolating years that God prepared him for the greatest assignment of his life, to lead a nation out of bondage. The brokenness, the solitude, the waiting, they were all tools in God's hand, shaping him, strengthening him, and establishing him as a spiritual authority whose legacy would outlive generations. The same principle applies to every chosen one today. Your loneliness is not a punishment, your brokenness is not defeat, and your waiting is not wasted. Every hardship is a step closer to the authority God is preparing you to wield. Influence does not come from popularity. Influence does not come from comfort or convenience. Influence comes from a life tested by fire, refined in trials, and tempered by hardship. When you have walked through the valley of isolation and emerged on the other side, people notice not because you demand attention, but because your experience speaks for itself. Your testimony carries weight. Your words carry power. Your presence carries authority, and that authority is not rooted in ego or ambition. It is rooted in intimacy with God, in understanding the cost of purpose, and in experiencing firsthand the transformative power of His hand in your life. Loneliness and brokenness also teach empathy. The chosen one who has been broken becomes a guide for the broken. The one who has been misunderstood becomes a voice for the silenced. The one who has walked through pain becomes a beacon of hope for those still in the wilderness. Spiritual authority is not about control, it is about service. Influence is not about domination, it is about impact. And those who've endured the lonely and painful seasons are uniquely equipped to lead with compassion, discernment, and authenticity because they know what it feels like to be tested, rejected, and refined. And here is the promise: the journey is never wasted. Every hardship has a purpose. Every tear has a meaning. Every lonely night and broken moment is building the foundation for a life that will touch the world. The chosen ones are set apart not to remain in obscurity, but to rise into prominence in God's kingdom, to carry His message with clarity, to lead with courage, and to influence with wisdom. Spiritual authority and divine influence are the reward of endurance, the fruit of brokenness, and the evidence that God's plan is perfect even when the process feels painful. So embrace your journey. Welcome the lessons of loneliness. Receive the shaping of brokenness. Trust the process even when the road is hard. For at the end of the path, you will find yourself standing in a place of authority that commands respect, an influence that changes lives, and a testimony that glorifies God. The very trials that tried to stop you have actually prepared you to rise, to lead, and to fulfill the destiny that only the chosen can achieve.